hosts and hopefully your new bookish pals. I'm Hannah MacDonald.
And I'm Lydia Clare. Our final book club pick of the year is the beautiful novel They're Going to Love You by Meg Howrey. The story of Carlisle Martin, who dreams of emulating her mother and becoming a professional ballet dancer, living in two worlds, one with her mother and the other with her father Robert and his brilliant but troubled partner James. As years pass, Carlisle yearns to live with her father and James, even as the AIDS crisis descends upon their community. However, one fateful decision will lead to dire consequences that may only be revealed 19 years later via an unexpected and devastating phone call.
Meg Howrey is a novelist, actor, and former professional dancer from Los Angeles. Her non-fiction has been published in Vogue and the Los Angeles Review of Books. Meg made her theatrical debut in James Lapine's 12 Dreams at the Lincoln Center, and in 2001, she received the Ovation Award for Best Supporting Actress in a Musical for her role in the Broadway national tour of Contact. As a professional dancer, Meg performed with the Joffrey Ballet and the City Ballet of Los Angeles, amongst others. She's the author of 4 novels and the co-author of 2 under the pen name Magnus Flight. We are thrilled to be joined by Meg herself today. So, Meg, welcome to our Bookends.
Thank you so much for having me. This is great.
Thank you for coming on.
So what we like to start with, and our Bookends, our listeners will know about this, and will be interested to know what you are currently reading.
Yes, well, I know about this question too, because I am also a listener. I feel like we could spend our whole time talking about how great Maggie Shipstead's The Great Circle is. Oh my goodness.
So good.
I just finished last night, and it was a reread for me, Leni Zumas's Red Clocks. Do you know this book?
No.
I love the title.
Immediately put it on your list.
Yes, okay. It's happening.
It's so good. I read it when it first came out in 2018, and I loved it so much. I just sort of inhaled it. I read it too fast, I think. You know how you sort of gobble. And I was thinking about it recently and sort of gave myself the indulgence of rereading. You have so many books that you need to get to and want to get to. So rereading sometimes feels like a spoiling situation, but it was even better second time.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
and the fact that you reread it so soon after the first read, like that's
it's just great.
Book.
Yes, it's set in a sort of near future United States, which now feels like present day United States, and it's multiple point of view characters, all women. It's really sort of the story centered around abortion rights and female reproductive rights, but each character, and sometimes with multi-character novels, you'll prefer one voice or one storyline over the other. This is every single character so clear and vivid and deep and rich, and it's a must read.
Sounds amazing. Yeah.
Must read.
I love those novels that encapsulate so many different people.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it's so hard. It must be so hard to do as well.
So yeah.
I love that. But yes, that's added to me list.
100%.
Here we go again.
Yeah, I've already got a book stack that's ridiculous from this podcast. So thank you for adding to that.
It's actually terrible.
You're probably going to get a message from us being like, oh my God, it's so good.
I'm sure I will. You'll love it. Yeah.
So before we get into the book, so you started out in your career as an actor and a professional dancer. What was your journey like into that industry?
The dancing is what started first.
Okay.
That's what I did from a little girl on. And I'm from a really small town in the middle of the United States. So I had to leave home really early. I left home at 12 to go away and train. And then I ended up in New York when I was 15. And that was my career for a while. And then I sort of started acting in my 20s. And I used to joke that there were like 4 of us in New York City who could dance ballet and say words without, throwing up. So we got all the parts. If they needed someone who could dance ballet and say words, there were like 4 of us. So that was lucky. So I did some theater, mostly theater and dancing, sometimes just theater. and then came out to Los Angeles in my 30s and danced for a little bit here. But I was really coming out here because I wanted to start writing. And I sort of felt like I needed to reinvent myself a little bit. And Los Angeles is a place where a lot of people come to do that. Although I may be one of the few people that come to Los Angeles to stop acting.
An anomaly,
right?
Yeah.
There is a moment in the book where there's a conversation between someone in LA and they say, "What kind of writer are you?" No, are you something or a screenwriter?
I don't know. You made this up?
No, I've not made it up.
Did you read my Vogue article? That's in my Vogue.
Oh, that was in your Vogue article. Do you know why?
I've read
You know why? Because I read your book and finished it and then immediately followed it up with the article. So that's where I've got that from. Okay, so that was actually you then. That was actually you that somebody said that. Okay, that makes sense.
That's very well researched.
Well, regardless, I love that Vogue article, and I'm going to link it in the show notes for anybody else that wants to read it because it's a brilliant read.
Cool, thank you.
So I would love to know what it was like for you to, I guess, reflect on that period of your life as a dancer when writing this book.
It was interesting. My second book is also set in the dance world, but it takes a very different lens. And I didn't think I would ever write about ballet or dance again because you don't want to repeat yourself. And I had this story for They're Going to Love You. I had it was a plot in search of characters for a while. I knew what was going to happen in the book, but I didn't know who it was going to happen to. And I think it was pandemic really that, like a lot of people, I'm suddenly furloughed from my job and shut in my apartment. And I was watching dance a lot online and watching these and music and theater too, and just watching all these artists try to stay afloat and figure out how to keep working. And I was so moved by it and started to think, maybe there's something left inside me to say about this world, different from what I was thinking, 10, 15 years ago. And, sometimes your characters age with you. I just turned 50. This central character's in her 40s. It was a different way into looking at the profession. So it was cool and interesting, and it kind of returned dance to me in a way that I felt like it had been gone from my life for a while. So I'm grateful for that.
It's a really difficult thing to let go of as well. I mean, I used to dance. I started dancing when I was 3. I'm an actor. So I started, dance was my first love. I started dancing when I was 3. I started acting classes when I was 5, and acting was my chosen career. And I really struggled when I was at college deciding to go to university and what to study. I was torn between studying dance or studying acting, and I went down the acting route. And I continued to dance at uni, doing the dance clubs, and we competed with our university team and all that kind of stuff. So I stayed in that world for a little bit. But when I graduated, I couldn't afford to take dance classes anymore. And I think being a dancer, I wasn't a ballet dancer. I've done all sorts of styles. Hip hop was my main love, but as a dancer, it feels like it's always within you. And I think the way you wrote this book, it was so I felt so connected to the way you wrote this book as a dancer. I really felt like that. There's a part of me that kind of lurks in the dark. That's I really want to dance. There'll be a certain song that comes on, and I can feel my body wanting to choreograph something or get into something. I think it always kind of lives within you. So I was just really, I was really curious about what that was like for you. But it sounds like it was a nice writing process rather than kind of a sad one.
Yes, there's definitely, I think you're right, absolutely. There's a kind of identity that grows in you if you dance, and it can be really difficult, the transition into something else. There's so much about dance that connects you to yourself and makes you feel special in a certain way. And when you lose it, you're like, oh, okay, I'm just an ordinary person now. There's nothing interesting about me. I don't have anything to show for myself. And it was my entire education too. I didn't go to college or anything. It was the only thing I knew how to do. So it was a real loss in a way. As much as at the time I was excited about writing and about reinventing myself, it was difficult and still sometimes surfaces in me. And I also get imposter syndrome when people are like, oh, you're a ballerina. I'm like, well, kind of. Was I?
Oh, can I just say as well, I was obsessed with that video that you posted yesterday of you unboxing your books. That was iconic.
The things I'll do to sell books, including put on point shoes in my kitchen, bagger upright.
If I didn't already have it, I would have bought it for that video alone. So,
yay!
Well, I feel kind of left out because the best I can do is a Macarena.
There's nothing wrong with the macaroni.
You got me that, right?
You're an actor too, though, aren't you?
I am, yeah. I am. So I do other creative things.
You are creative.
But there was a great in the book about how difficult it was to make movie stars dance, and how, like, if you are getting to do more than 2 steps and say a line, it's like whoa. And I'm like, oh, that's me. I'm like, yeah, no, don't make me move and talk. It's hard. But I think for me, like, as a non-dancer, the way that you write dance is so poetic. It made me feel like I was a ballet dancer. I was like,
good.
Oh my goodness, it was beautiful the way that you described it. Your descriptive style was just unbelievably good. I don't know what it feels like to be a ballet dancer, but you made me feel it. How much of, we've talked about it before, but in terms of the dance content in it, how much of that was kind of planned out beforehand? Like, she's going to be a ballerina, she's going to do this, she's going to take classes, James is going to be involved in the world, her parents going to be part of the dance world. Was it always going to be a book about people in the dance world, or did that come after, like you say, like the plot and things?
Right. So it did come after the plot, and I was really cautious about it because writing about dance is difficult, and you want it to feel accessible to people who know nothing about dance and who maybe don't care. It can sometimes seem like this weird, elitist, strange little world, and that's not entirely wrong. But one of the things when I was thinking about the book and starting to think, well, maybe they're dancers, maybe this is their history, and I pulled out some of my old dance books, photograph books and things, some of which I've had since I was a student, and I'm looking at these photographs, and I used to of course, like, worship the great stars of the ballet, and they were I'd have them on my walls and such, and this time I was really focused on the people behind the stars, the sort of woman in the back corner of the photograph. And that's also with movies. When I watch those old, like, MGM musicals, I'm obsessed with the girls in the background. Like Sid Charisse will be doing amazing things in the front, and then there'll be 6 brunettes behind her, and I'm just wondering, like, what was their day like on set, and were they sticking a bun in their purse to take home for their roommate who didn't get the job, just imagining the whole lives. And so I thought would be interesting to look at this career not from the point of view of a star or someone massively successful, but people that were like so many of us, that just worked and had to take weird jobs and worried about money and tried to make it happen, and we're always trying to feel inside it, and sometimes succeeding and sometimes not. So that really became a force for the book, to really look at, yes, what it's like to be a dancer, but what it's like to be an artist. And as a woman, what it's like to be an artist as a woman. And in my country, where there's the support for the arts is terrible. And Right. So you feel always on the outside of things, not just sometimes within your profession, but culturally, always having to explain to other people that, no, it's actually a real thing to be an artist. And it is work, and, it's not about, ego or fame or money, because we're not seeing any of that.
Any actor or dancer or creative really that I know very rarely does it for the glory,
No.
because there really is not much glory in it.
You've got to leave your ego at the door.
Leave your ego at the door. and you know, I hate the term jobbing actor, or, you know, working actor, or jobbing dancer, because no, you're an actor. No, you're a dancer. What's the criteria for you? Oh, now I've become an actor because I've done this, and this, you know?
Right.
I hate when, you know, there's still a lot of people that'll ask me, you know, oh, are you still doing the acting thing? Like, it's just like,
on the side.
Just so what I'm doing for the laugh. Like, oh yeah, I just, you know, I put all this money and went into so much student debt to you would never ask that to someone that did any other courses at uni. You know, if they weren't a creative, if they don't know. Are you
still doing that architecture thing?
Right. Still trying to make lawyering happen. Yeah.
But
good luck to you.
It's so infuriating, and I think, you know, it is one of those things where it's like, if you're not in that world, if you haven't worked to become an artist before, like, you don't truly understand the amount of like hard work and perseverance that it actually takes. And I think in this book, like, that really comes across. Like, I think if somebody wasn't in those worlds, like, they would really get a feel for what it's like. I think you definitely communicated that like so well.
Yeah, and how well Carlisle manages it, like her career. Like you said, it's not some kind of superstardom, but she worked really, really well, and she's so good at what she does. And you say she didn't reach. She didn't reach the superstardom, but there was the moment towards the end, without giving too much away, where not spoiling anything. I'm gonna be careful. The way somebody says to her that they were aware of her career and how well she'd actually done. So did she actually do well, but she was being hard on herself and just moving along? Or I don't know. I think she was really, really good at what she did, and in the dance world, became.
We've got the writer right here.
Why are we not?
Was she actually successful, and she didn't believe in her success? Like, she didn't realize how successful she was because she was being so harsh on herself?
We need to know.
Yeah, we need to know.
I mean, I think both interpretations are good.
We're both right. We're both right.
Yeah. Well, no, because it is that thing of, well, first of all, as we're talking about, like, what does success really mean? And so, yes, I imagined her as being really good, and that there are people in the dance world that would love her work and know her work. That she wouldn't necessarily be aware of that the way you're not aware, you know, of the people that go to see you in plays and talk about you after. You don't hear that conversation, but they're saying, oh my God, she was amazing. She was so good. I've seen her in 3 other things, you know, and you have no idea. And I think that we're so hard on ourselves that she would, and as an artist, you're always sort of wanting to be part of a conversation or seeing goalposts. And then moving those goalposts. So you know, you get one great job and you feel really successful, or if you feel like, oh, I really, you know, here I am, I'm arriving, and then
you go into a panicked frenzy of, when's the next job going to come? Can I pay my rent? Is everything okay? Yeah, definitely. So when I'm moving slightly on, but when Carlisle is 10, there is a businessman on her flight that comments on the way that she sleeps, and she says, as it happens, I'll never fall asleep on a plane again. And it was that kind of adolescent realization of your body is kind of not your own, that only really happens for females, I would say. Now, Lydia has a really great quote from the book that I feel really kind of epitomizes that sense of fear. So she's going to read her own book back to you.
This is great.
But this is, as our bookends will know, this is again another one where me and Hannah both picked the same thing.
We did. We were like,
that book with us. So this is Carlisle in a park. I need to sit down. There's a lovely tiny park at hand and a bench occupied by 2 chatting women, a little older than I am. We smile at each other the way women do when we're signalling our gratitude that the stranger invading our space is a woman rather than a man. Yes. Like, how many times have you had that where I literally had it at a train station today, and I was like, I thought, where do I sit? And, you know, the seat by a man and a seat by a woman, I'm going to sit by the woman every time. And, you know, you wrote it so well.
And I think, although I said moving slightly on, I think there is definitely a thing between dancers and their bodies, and certainly when dancers start out early and the sort of sexualization of their young body and the way their bodies are talked about. I know when I was at college, I was in a dance class, and when we were at college, we had to do contemporary and we had to try and do ballet. But I had never been a fan of ballet simply because of the way my body looks, and I knew my body wasn't the right body for ballet. And it didn't help. We were in these leotards and tights, and I'm very short, quite curvy. None of the other people in my class were, and the teacher was going, "Oh, you know, you've got these gorgeous long lean bodies," and it was just kind of a nod to the fact that I didn't look like that, and she really acknowledged that. And I just think that is, we dance and bodies, you know, they are things that are intrinsically linked. But like, why was it important for you to include moments like this in the book, and was it sort of linked to the way she feels about her body and the way she perceives her body?
Yes, I'm so glad you liked that passage. I think I'm always trying to get inside the bodies of my characters, all of them. And for Carlisle, who becomes quickly very tall, and it becomes this conflict for her because she's remarkably tall, not just for a ballet dancer, but for a woman. And it makes her body a target and a thing that she wrestles with. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of women wrestle with their own bodies and feel like their body, just simply by existing, is a target out in the world. And so we look for refuge for our bodies, and often when we find them with other women, it's very powerful. And I mean, obviously we all go through a time, especially in adolescence, where our bodies are targets for other girls too. I mean, it's a painful process. I mean, I should say female bodies because everybody identifies in different ways, but I really wanted this book to feel physical and to give you a sense of the bodies of all the characters. And I felt that was maybe another way in for readers that weren't dancers, that could connect to what it feels like to be inside their body, to move their body through the world, and constantly sort of gauging the reactions to it from the world.
So one really, really lovely part of the book for me was the close friendship between Freya and Carlisle. It was wonderfully nuanced. Every interaction felt natural, loving, believable. I mean, I have friendship like that. I'm going to read it you again.
It's got another quote.
You know what, I might when we quote, I can't not. But I think it really epitomizes that, their relationship, and how well it's written. So Freya is exactly the kind of artist and woman I want to be. Strong, strange, funny, elegant, opinionated. We talk about things, ambitions, ideas, books, religion, art, sex. Some nights we grab a studio and I improvise movement to lines from one of Freya's plays as she reads them out. I get her up and moving with me, the inspiration for my latest suite of duets for one train dancer and one not. Our residency romance continues when we return to Los Angeles. Her boyfriend is beautiful but dumb. She calls him the last hurrah, something to get out of the system so I can move on to the dependable man I love dearly. One day she calls me up and asks if she can come over and walk straight into my apartment, and talks and cries for hours. Nothing specifically traumatic has happened. It's a conjunction of various stresses. Her work not going well, old shit with the family surfacing. The last hurrah can still be hurtful even when she doesn't love him. A friend of hers from conservatory days is doing well, and it's wretched to be jealous. For the first time in my life, I don't listen to another person with observant greed. I listen as if I'm inside her body while she's talking. When she takes a long, shuddering breath, I do too. We burst out laughing at the same time. Now, I mean, if you've not got a friend like that in your life, go look for one, because they make your life bearable. And so Freya doesn't feature, a lot in the book. She kind of crops up at these key pivotal moments throughout. So why do you believe she's so integral, Dory? Because I really believe that she's so important.
Yeah, she's so important. There are a couple of reasons. One, I really believe and am interested in friendships that happen sort of later in life. And this is a friendship that forms when they're, in their 30s. And Carlisle says of Freya that she's my first real friend. And I think it's, partly Carlisle not knowing herself until a certain point in her life. And I have felt myself that I didn't learn to become a good friend until slightly slightly later in my life. I had close friends as a young person, but I didn't know how to be a good friend until I was a little bit older. And so I kind of wanted to give Carlisle that, since she has enough problems. And then, yes, because Carlisle is not married and does not have children. And I think it's important that we know that women don't need to be married or have boyfriends or girlfriends or children to experience intimacy in their lives. So I wanted her to have someone with whom she was really intimate with as a gift for her, but also just as a thing to explore in the novel, where there's so many complicated relationships, to sort of balance that.
I love it. I wanted,
yeah. My friendships are so intimate, and I sometimes feel sad for men, and I'm like, oh, you really don't allow yourself out of that.
It's very like on the third level, so
yeah,
not all men.
Not all men, no.
Yeah.
So, sorry, go on.
No, I don't think they get our vocabulary for friendship.
Yeah.
Poor things.
Poor things.
No.
Yeah.
So I've done it again. I hate when I'm laughing and then I have to talk about something serious.
Okay, right, serious face.
So obviously the book is set during the AIDS crisis. Well, one part of the book is set during the AIDS crisis, and there are some really beautifully written moments that kind of perfectly capture this huge tragedy. And also, the community at the heart of this tragedy. What drew you to wanting to write about this period, and how was it to write such a sensitive topic?
I approached it delicately because there's so much good and important writing from people who survived this and people looking at that time. And so what do I have to say, and what right do I have to say it? So I thought a way in for me was to put it through Carlisle's perspective as a young person who's watching this thing unfold, and she's observing it and it's touching her, but she's not inside it, and she doesn't fully understand the way it is scarring the people closest to her. I mean, she comes to that understanding, but what do you understand about trauma when you're 10, in the adults in your lives? And I think it was a way to kind of honor to what I experienced as a young person, when I had teachers and friends and people I admired and dying, and the kind of emptiness and loss that we all lived through during that time, and what it meant to survivors. Years later, I became friends with some older guys in their 60s at the time, and sort of mentors to me, not quite in the same way that it works in the book, but definitely mentors. And I was surprised because I was just a stupid woman in her 20s, stupid kid, and they were so sophisticated and brilliant and interesting, and I was surprised they wanted to be friends with me. And one of them said to me, "Oh, it means so much to us to be friends with a young person, because everyone we know died." And I never forgot it, and that was in my head too when I was writing this time period, and thinking about what was lost in that time.
Well, like I said, it was written so beautifully, and there was a moment that really stuck out to me, and I think Lydia said it did. Yeah, it's the moment where Robert and James, I don't know who answers the phone. James answers the phone, and it's just a phone call, and he answers the phone and gives a look and says a name, and that's all that needs to be said. And then there's just like a sort of silent communication between them, although there's one word said. It's just a name, and there's just an understanding there that her as a young person doesn't kind of follow what's kind of going on in the room, but she senses that change in the room. And I think that was just so beautifully written. That really touched me, that moment. Yeah, it is such a horrendous time, and people were they were treated so terribly by governments, by society, and to kind of have that knowledge whilst reading this book, where you're not looking at society's treatment of them, and you're not looking at the government's treatment of them. You're inside their house in this enclosed private space, watching these things unfold, but having that knowledge of how they were treated outside of those doors. It is just so, yeah, it was really painful to read, and I'm so sorry that you lost people during that time. I do also want to slot in a recommendation to listeners, and I'm not sure if you've watched it yourself, Meg, but the program It's a Sin. Russell, have you watched it?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a great
Phenomenal.
TV show that's written by Russell T Davies, who is incredible.
I adore it.
Yeah, me too. And that's set during the AIDS crisis, and it is just a really brilliant show. So I will pop that recommendation in the show notes. Lydia, you had a question linking to this, didn't you?
So as the story progresses, we begin to see how Robert, Carlisle's father, is kind of unequivocal about cutting people off when they do wrong to him or his family. He's very sort of like, no, that's it now, you're gone. Can you tell us a bit more about why Robert was like?
Yes. So in imagining his character and again, trying to be inside his body and his history, he's someone who has made choices in his life and felt like the only way through them was to be absolute about it. I mean, he's cut off from his family. He lives a very different life than what he was brought up to. He's, a man who came of age in the 60s and 70s from a conservative family, and he becomes this artist and a gay man living in New York. And he's so protective of everything he has because it is so hard won for him. So I think his absolutism really comes from that, this sense that he has fought so hard to claim this space for himself that he cannot allow anyone to take anything away from him. And his relationship with James is very much like this. And Carlisle doesn't realize as a young person the extent to which James is a thing that Robert not just loves, but needs and wants to protect. And I think that does happen with us when we feel fragile about something. It's when we'll fight most viciously for it, right? And refuse to be generous in the ways that we can be generous when we feel more secure. So that's really where thinking about that character.
Yeah, I feel for me, Robert felt like he was very much about self-preservation and how hard it was to stay afloat in this world and how easily things could just topple. And, in that position, I mean, I'm sure we've all sort of felt in that where it's like, I'm either going to have to, I'm in this corner, I'm either to fight my way out or I sit here. And I think he's very much about, no, I'm not gonna let you put me in the corner.
Right.
And there is a kind of what's the word? Like a contrast between him and James. There's a huge contrast between the way they handle things. And I think, there's definitely a sense that not only is it all the other things that have gone on in their life, it is, what the AIDS crisis has done to them and to their mentalities. And one of them, has chosen to at times let it swallow them. Yeah. And the other has
the emotional side.
And the other has gone, no, and it's almost like blocking it out in a sense. And both ways are, really sad and
just coping mechanism.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Right.
But I think the contrast between the two was really powerful. Yeah. There's also I'm not going to do a long quote because we're constantly reading your book back to you.
I've read the whole thing.
It's so good.
29.
We absolutely, if it wasn't clear already, listeners, like we absolutely love this
we really like this one.
Just a bit. Get it on your TBRs. So there is a quote, and I must have reread this line about 6 times because I just loved it. Carlisle says, "I swear to God, I will set a match to Bank Street. I will watch it burn to the ground." And it's so short, that line, but I really understood that rage. I understood it so well. And I was thinking, that is the only sort of rage that can be provoked by a parent or a child within that dynamic. I don't think there's any other relationship in my life that could provoke that rage. My mom. And my mom, my dad, anybody else,
my kids,
but it's so powerful, that rage. And I really, in that one short line, I really felt it. And parent and child dynamics parent and child relationships are so nuanced, and that you definitely get the sense of that with Carlisle and her mother, and Carlisle with her father, and Carlisle with James. There are so many nuances with their relationships. But what made you want to write their dynamics in this way? I mean, especially with the sort of rage she feels with her relationship with Robert.
You start off in a book not knowing your people, and you know certain things about them. And for me, especially with this book, where everyone has a point of view and everyone makes a mistake. And I really wanted to feel that sort of trickiness. Nobody is perfect. And so when writing each character's point of view, all I can say is I just try to get as honestly and deeply inside their body as much as possible. And then just figure out like, what's the most honest, scary thing inside this person. And the deeper I got into the book, the more sort of sweaty it became.
Yeah.
And it's a good thing I write at home, because it's just like a mad scene and it's just like wild movement. So yeah, I think like the hotter and more vivid and honest, especially with Carlisle, who like is brutally honest both about herself and what she's trying to keep a lid on for much of the book. And so it's really, things just grow, and the kind of understanding that you get from your characters by the end of the book is what's so hard about finishing a book, because it's like you've created all these people that you know so well, and then it goes out of your hands. And then, I'm now like a few weeks away from the book coming out in the world. And of course, I hope people, read it and like it, but this is why it's so great to hear you read and talk about it, because it's like you're talking about like my friends that nobody knows. My people. It's like
it's in the world well, and they'll love them just as much.
It's a blessing to the loneliness of having to wait a year for people to know these people as much as I did. So I don't know if that answered that question. It just went into my own.
It totally did. I think we understand the mixture of the feeling of almost as actors, you live in a character for 4 weeks of rehearsals and then 2 weeks of a show, and then it's like the curtain
you've
closes.
been inhabiting these characters' worlds for 4 weeks, and then like, suddenly you can
okay, I have to leave that woman behind that I've just played and felt like I was so long, and I feel like that might be something akin to the same.
I think it's very much the same. So definitely in that moment inside Carlisle, I wanted to set a match and burn it to the ground, as she did.
I felt that. I felt it.
I love the rage.
Lydia's gonna kill me. I'm holding on to her so she doesn't start her question. I am steering off track and she hates when I do this, hates it. But I'm just so interested in the fact, I'm sorry, Lydia.
At this point, it's like, yet again.
I am so interested in, you keep saying that you really wanted to get into these characters' bodies. And obviously I said that this quote in particular, that rage was so visceral for me, like I felt that for her. And you were also just saying about how, you're really glad that you write at home because there's lots of wild movement and stuff. Do you move while you're writing? Is there movement that you do to get you into character? Is there a link between that, or have I just totally read this wrong?
No, it's so interesting. I just did the audiobook for it. Yeah. And it's the first book I've narrated. And I was thinking, how can I read this? You have to stay so still, right? So that you don't, pick up anything. And I cannot be still. So then I was realizing, when I write, I do adopt like a posture for each character. You'll understand this as actors. So I could do mini versions of that in the book. But sometimes it's music. I listen to music a lot when I write, nothing with lyrics, but this book especially, because there's a lot of music in the book. So there's a sort of like weird dance I do before I approach the computer, where I'm like, is this really happening?
Preparation.
Are we? I'm really going to write now, right? And nope, no, not yet. And then so I circle it like a shark, and then always while typing, I'm trying to feel the scene, how the bodies are moving in the scene, what's happening, and also trying to just find the vocabulary or the new ways of saying, she got up from the chair, and some things you just don't understand until you're doing them. So it's I've a couple of times I've tried writing before pandemic times. I would try writing in a cafe or something, and I thought, look like a lunatic in Los Angeles. Even in Los Angeles, I look like a crazy person. So yeah.
Well,
That's-
anyone that knows me knows that having to do this podcast, I have to have something in my hands or hold something because I'm a chronic gesticulator.
Yeah.
I can't not talk with my hands, and I get told off by Billy, our wonderful tech, who constantly tells me to not hit the microphone.
Yeah.
And not pull out the headphones.
Yeah.
Because I just can't. And my crab claws come out when I get very excited, and I'm like. So yeah, I understand.
You relate. Yeah.
So you can go back to your question now.
Oh, can I?
Yeah.
Thanks. So we touched on it a little bit before, actually, about the kind of moral ambiguity of a lot of the characters and about their reaction thing. I loved the way that nobody came out of the story unscathed. There was, any of the decisions that were made sort of had an instant reaction and effect on all of the characters around Carlisle, including herself, but particularly with Robert and particularly with James, and how kind of you never quite knew where you stood kind of morally on things. It was sort of like, well, maybe that's okay, and then, well, no, I kind of understand why they'd be angry, and then I really love that ambiguity. Was that intentionally put in? Did you feel like that's really a really kind of key point to have?
Yes, that's a dream reader statement that you just made. Yes.
That's it.
No, that's exactly, yes. I hope that people would take sides and change sides and feel like, oh, wait
Yeah.
a second. Because I think that's honest too. I mean, sometimes we know we've absolutely done the right thing, and sometimes we know we've absolutely done the wrong thing. But a lot of the times we do things and we know our motives are mixed, and we know we didn't nail it, and we know that we're holding on to things we shouldn't hold on to, or our reactions are coming not from the thing the person said, but from a whole bag of paper clips of other shit that we've got, stored up and stuff. I don't know what I can say on your podcast.
Any swear away.
Go for it.
So to me, that just felt like really the more honest place to look at the way, just to tangent a little bit, but I went years ago to this poetry reading, and the poet, one of her pieces was everyone's sitting down on the ground, and she said, if you feel like it, if it's honest for you, stand up and say, I will be the first to lay my weapons down. And it was a piece about pacifism, really. And at the moment, and so people started standing up and saying it. And I sat there thinking, I am not going to lay my weapons down. I am so angry. We had an election in this country, and it was a time when I just felt like I was just discovering my weapons in a way, and was not going to lay them down, even though, of course, I believe in peace and I believe in doing that. It's a beautiful thing. Her piece is absolutely right on. So it was just interesting to watch myself reject it at the time. And then when I was writing this book, I thought, yeah, these are people who will not lay their weapons down. In fact, they're making things from their weapons. They're making art, they're making good decisions and bad decisions. And so in a way, the book is a kind of journey to see who's going to lay their weapons down and what will that bring them. Anyway, that poet's name is Mandy Kahn. I'm going to give her a shout out now.
Oh,
she's
thank
great.
you. No, look her up.
I love that, and I love that inspired you with your work. Like, that's art inspires art. I love that.
Yeah, that's why we all need to be going and seeing things and reading things.
Exactly. More artists, everyone.
Yeah, support art.
Come to my plays.
Yes, please.
Yes.
This isn't about us right now.
Oh gosh, yeah.
So I really felt, if it wasn't already apparent, as though the protagonist was speaking directly to me. And I don't just mean that in a metaphorical sense. I really felt that there was a conversational tone, the way that you write. And I wanted to know, was this a conscious choice, or was this something that just kind of grew organically when you were writing?
It's, when you write in first person, it's tricky. because it has to feel really personal, as if the author was, writing a thinly disguised memoir or, diary. It has to feel that way, no matter how far the character is from your own thing. So I couldn't really start writing until I had her voice in my head. So there's I usually think about books for a couple months before I can make any kind of writing happen, like a big brooding period. And once I had like maybe the second or third chapter, I felt her voice like, oh, okay, I know what she sounds like. And part of the accessibility too is that she needed to feel like, oh, just like, a woman that you're hearing talking directly to you, saying the scary bits out loud. So that was fun. And it was interesting, actually, when I went into the booth to do the audio recording, I thought, well, most of this book is her voice, so I should do it as close to my natural speaking voice as possible. I thought, but she doesn't sound like me. It's a different voice. I should have gotten an actor. So yeah, I'm glad that her voice felt, real to you and accessible. My first readers, I have a little writing group in Los Angeles, and they look at things in progress, and none of them are dancers. So that was really important to me. That does this voice work? Do you feel this person? Does she feel real to you? But also, like, do you have a way into this book?
Yeah.
I was also reading it and thinking how much of a great adaptation make.
Yes, again with their adaptation.
I just think it would be so beautiful.
You're not tall enough.
Right.
Freya.
Freya.
Yeah, but she lives on the phone.
I can live on the phone. I can do my voice.
For the adaptation, she's got more scenes.
Oh, they do?
There is an adaptation.
No, for my dream adaptation.
Okay.
That we're going to make happen.
Yes.
Do you see how I did that? I was trying to get it out of you, and I...
You gotta watch it. So I would like to end on my last question. I would like to end on it's my favorite question that I ask everybody, literally everyone I meet, but particularly authors, and that is, what authors have inspired you and your work? It puts you on the spot, I realize.
There's this, it's the people I love the most, I don't write anything like. Yeah. I wish I could, but I think the writers that made me want to be a writer were people like Sybille Bedford and Iris Murdoch and Virginia Woolf and E.M Forster and Madox and Somerset Maugham. And I didn't really start, I think because I didn't go to college, so I was always trying to catch up in my education. I didn't start reading contemporary fiction until I started writing contemporary fiction. So the people that I'm loving now are people like Charles Yu, Zadie Smith, Yiyun Li.
It's always that question. It's like the question when someone says, "What's your favorite book?" and you forget every book that's ever been written.
as soon as you finish this call, you'll go,
oh my gosh, what was and Ruth Ozeki. I think, amazing. Miriam Toews, All My Puny Sorrows is like the book I hand probably the most to people.
I haven't read that.
Oh my gosh. Well, after you
look at the shot. It's going on TBR. I'm ordering it right now. Promise, Meg, I promise.
Don't hate us with it
now. After you read Leni Zumas's Red Clocks, then you read All My Puny Sorrows.
Okay.
It's fantastic. And she wrote a book called Women Talking, which is about to come out as a film too.
Yes, I've heard about this.
Yes,
I haven't read that either, but of course I've heard about an adaptation. I don't know if it's obvious to you, but I don't want to let you go. I would like to continue talking to you, but we can't keep you forever, unfortunately. Now, They're Going to Love You isn't out yet when we record this. That's my voice. When we record this, but by the time this episode comes out in December, it will be out in all bookstores. So we will be including a link in our show notes. We will be raving about it non-stop because it is an incredible book. So listeners, please do go buy and I can't even get my words out. Please do go buy this book. That's how passionate I am about it. I can't even get my words out. It's such an incredible book. And Meg, I'm going to tell you now because I'm so confident It's one of my top 10 reads of the year. And it's very difficult for me to make these choices, but it's in there.
I'm so honored. Oh, thank you.
You're so honored that Hannah from Manchester that nobody knows.
I'm sweating. That's what I do when I get emotional. I start sweating.
Oh,
but we want to make you sweat.
But it is an incredible book, and readers really do not miss out on this one. It's amazing, and we will include a link in the show notes, as we've said. Also, definitely going to be listening to the audiobook now that I know that you're narrating it.
Nab your hands on that.
Love that.
Oh, I hope I did the English accent for Freya. Okay, don't laugh.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing.
I'm excited to hear that now.
I did a coaching session with an English, so that I didn't wander around, the length and breadth of your country with the vowels.
Hysterical.
Yeah.
I love that. But before we let you go, we always like to find out, is there anything you've been enjoying recently? We love a cultural recommendation.
I just went and saw Tar with Cate Blanchett. Where she plays a conductor. Do you know this film?
I have not heard of this.
Tar.
No.
TAR. Just came out here. Maybe it hasn't.
Oh, it won't
out.
be over here yet, I don't think.
Yeah. Well, go see it when it comes out.
I'm like confused.
Yeah.
But
It's a film.
Yeah, film.
Okay.
Cate Blanchett stars as a conductor. It's a really interesting movie. The person I went to see it with, we were talking about it for like 3 days after.
Oh, wow.
Oh, well, that's a good sign.
Very complicated. So I'm on the hunt for good new TV shows. So send me your recommendations, please.
You watching anything good at the minute?
We watched, me and Billy watched The Walk-In recently, which my acting coach was the lead in, and he was fabulous. It's called The Walk-In. Have you heard of Stephen Graham? He's a big British actor, but I don't know. But yeah, it's called The Walk-In, and it's about, there was a Yorkshire MP that was killed a few years ago by some right-wing extremists. And it's about that group, how those things happen, how dangerous and kind of toxic these groups are, and how they can sort of groom young men into joining them, and how easily it happens. But that was a brilliant TV series, so I would really recommend that.
Oh, cool.
Also, an American one. Have you watched This Is Us?
This is. Oh no, I haven't.
Us. Oh, good. This Is Us.
She got me onto it, and to be honest, it is cracking.
You will probably cry every other episode, but it's so beautiful, and it splits between their lives, past and present.
Right.
And it's the parents have these triplets, and it's about the triplets as adults, but then it goes back to what their parents were like when they were young, and it's just kind of splitting between, and it's just how they've how they've all kind of become these people and what's happened to them throughout their lives. But it's so beautifully done, and I was reading up on it because it's finished now, but it's on Prime, and apparently they were so confident in this story, and it'd been plotted out so well that they'd actually filmed some of the final scenes years ago.
Oh wow.
Even though the final season has only just come out, they'd filmed it so long ago because it had been so well plotted out, and I just thought like that's like incredible. But yeah, I cannot recommend that enough.
And what a great flex to be like, absolutely 100% we're going to make it to 7 seasons. So
yeah,
let's
crazy.
I mean, confident.
Some good going.
Yeah. Wait, I'm going to ask you, because we don't have it here yet, but they made an adaptation of Kate Atkinson's Life After Life,
which I've not watched yet.
Okay.
No, yeah, it is on. It's on BBC iPlayer.
Is it?
Yeah, we need to watch that.
Okay.
Can I come over tomorrow night and watch it?
And we'll get the wine in the fridge.
Don't
worry.
I'll bring some wine. Like, hey.
I would love that. You're
Always
welcome
welcome.
Here anytime.
Always
If
welcome.
you're ever in the UK, please do give us a shout.
I know,
because
give us a ring.
we'll go for a wine.
Okay, excellent.
So Lydia has furiously scribbled on my notebook that I need to say a huge thank you to Bloomsbury, because they sent us copies of your book, and
Yeah.
They're great. And,
Yeah.
you know, they have helped to arrange this conversation, which we're so grateful for because we've loved chatting to you, Meg, and we don't want to let you go.
Well, I'm coming over tomorrow night.
Well, there we go. Perfect.
It's not the end.
It's not the end. But thank you
fair.
so much, Meg. This has been amazing. We've loved chatting to you. We love reading your book. And is there anything, anywhere that our listeners can find you and your work?
I'm on Instagram at Meg Howrey and on Twitter, and unless Elon Musk, unless he takes,
Conditional.
yeah,
By the time this episode goes out, who knows?
Right.
Go check.
right. By the time it comes out, he'll have bought Christmas, and we'll have to pay him $8 for it. I'm an unverified Meg at Meg Howrey on Twitter, and I have a website which is www.meghowrey.
Amazing. So yeah, listeners, get following her because this book's going to blow up. I know it is. I'm so excited. But yeah, thank you so much, Meg. And listeners, please do rate, review, and subscribe as it helps to boost us in the charts. And I think that's all we've got time for, isn't it? I am trying to drag this out as long as possible.
I know. Wrap it up, woman. Wrap it up.
But yeah, thank you for listening.